Hello, this is Beverly from scrapandthread.blogspot.com. Today I'm making a little home decor Christmas decoration. It started out with 3 different little canvases. I got these at Joann's. They're 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches. They're called itty canvases. I think they're like $1, but I got them on sale when they were 50% off. So anyway, you just take the little canvases, and I covered them with some double-sided pattern paper. This happens to be retired from Close to My Heart. And I made the little frame, and I cut up some holly leaves with my Cricut, and added some little pearls that I'd colored and put it all together. So I'll show you how I did that, making the letters. Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that I did was I used the Baroque alphabet stamps. This comes from Close to My Heart, and I've already done obviously the O and the Y, so I'm going to do the J right now. And I'm stamping it twice. The first time with just plain black ink. This is just a regular black dye ink from Close to My Heart. And I don't really care if I get it perfectly on here in any particular way, because what I'm going to do is fussy cut out the J. And that's all I really care about, so it doesn't matter if it's off of there at all. But I need to clean my stamp, because then I'm going to be using Versamark, and I don't want to have the black ink on the stamp for that. Now on this one, the reason why I'm using the Versamark is because I'm going to heat emboss the letter. And once again, I don't care if it's not straight on here, because I am going to cut it out, but I do want it to all be on the paper, so that part is important. And I keep my embossing powders in little Gladware plastic containers because they're easier. This happens to be the Close to My Heart Silver. I label all of them so I know what's what. But I found that this works better for me, and it's easier because I can just kind of stick that in there, get it all covered, and it doesn't make a mess at all. So this is going to be noisy. Okay, don't you just love how that works? I think that's so cool. Alright, so now I'm going to just cut this out. I did want to mention how I made the holly, just so I can get the stamping stuff out of the way. I had taken 2 different colors of cardstock. One is called New England Ivy, the other one's Ponderosa Pine, and I had the Cricut cut out 3/4 inch sized holly leaves and 1/2 inch size holly leaves. These are with the Art Philosophy Art Philosophy collection, which is Close to My Heart cartridge. And then after cutting a bunch of them out, I did stamp them with a background stamp because I wanted to be able to have just a little bit more dimension in there. And I used New England Ivy ink from Close to My Heart, and then I used this background stamp, and I just stamped all of them all at once. And then after I did that, I took the edger sponge and I just sponged around the edges. to give it a little bit more depth. And then the other thing that I did was I used, this is an embosser, a dry embosser, and I took the leaves, the holly leaves, and I just ran the embosser along here to just give it a little bit more texture. And so then that helps to kind of make it more holly-like. And so that's how I did that. So I'll gather these all up out of my way. The other thing I did was to make the holly berries was I used the Bitty Opaques, they're little pearls from Close to My Heart, and I colored them with 2 different colors of Copics. This is R29 Lipstick Red and R27 Cadmium Red. And you just color your Copics on there, and you just do as many as you need. If you do extras, I'm sure you can find something else to do with them, but I usually try to do about 3 berries per holly cluster, and I know that I'll make probably 2 or 3 clusters on there, so I'll need at least probably 9 or so. And of course I can make more if I need to. But anyway, you just color them just like that. It's real simple. Okay, now I'm ready to paint my little frame. I made the frame using the Martha Stewart silicone frame here. And this is just crafter's clay. I got it at Joann's. It comes white like that in the package. You can color the clay before you put it in the mold. However, I knew I wanted to paint it afterwards. So after that is molded, you do need to let it dry a little bit. And once it's a little more rigid, then you know you're okay to go. But it does need to dry. It doesn't have to bake. And you can let it dry overnight, of course, and then it would be fine. But a couple of hours is usually good. And so the paint that I'm using, I always use these little, it's trash really, so that I can recycle things or reuse things. And I'm using the Create a Shade, it's Pearl paint. It comes from Close to My Heart. And I'm going to put a little bit of that in there with some re-inker, and this is the Parchment color. Now, one of the disadvantages to doing this after I've already done the other 2 is that my color may just be a little bit different, and so I'll have to kind of double check on what I ended up with there. So I'm just going to put the re-inker in. You should shake this up. I should have done that first. And then just put a few drops. If you don't like the color, add more, or add more paint if you've made it a little bit too dark. And it sort of looks orange in here, but but it dries nicely to kind of a peachy bisque color. And a little goes a long way. You don't need very much at all. So, all right. So after I've mixed my paint, I'm just going to paint it on with my little brush, get it in all the little grooves. Paint the inside part also, as well as the outside frame. And then set that aside to dry. And then also, I used my leftover paint and did the edges on all of the sides, and I did that before with the other paint that I'd already used. So this is dry and ready to go. Now with the frame, you can glue it down on top of this with some of the matte medium. some of the medium to get that to stick onto there. But because this isn't quite dry yet, I just painted it. I am going to let it dry a little bit, and then I will glue it on. I use the Close to My Heart liquid glass to glue a lot of stuff on, and that's how I also glued on the little holly leaves. So I'm going to let this dry, and then we'll finish up. Dimensional tape or foam tape on there. And then that's going to go in like that.